I was kind of reflecting on where to take this conversation today. And I was thinking primarily about a conversation that I had yesterday with one of my clients. He's an 18-year-old kid. He was asking me how to put on muscle. And I told him, like, look, you really should focus on protein. And I'm really glad that I gave him that advice. And then he
Right.
asked me about vegetables. Should I be eating vegetables? And it's no secret here on this show that I'm a carnivore. I've been carnivore 4 years. We interview tons of carnivores. I don't think they're great for people, vegetables. So I go into this like 5 minute rant about how bad vegetables are and you should never eat vegetables and all this stuff. And I got in my car afterwards and I just like thought to myself, like, did that really need to happen? Like that was something that I believe in, but is that like the hill to die on? You know what I mean? And I'm out on
Right.
a walk this morning and I see a food truck that is donut kebabs. I can only imagine what donut kebabs are, but like why did I take the time to explain all the bad things about vegetables when we live in a world where donut kebabs live? And this
Right.
is why I love your approach and I love your message. You guys keep things really simple and approachable for people. Why do you think that's important?
Right. Because the main thing that's killing people is the man-made food. It's the processed foods, the things that are in box bottles, bags, cans, down the center aisles. That stuff is loaded with vegetable and seed oils, which are extremely harmful, have like a 20-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3, which means you have much more inflammatory prostaglandins than you do anti-inflammatory, and we are walking around inflamed. Then they're loaded with processed carbohydrates, which keeps your insulin levels high, and that's the main thing with obesity is the people who are obese because their insulin levels are high. Because if your insulin levels are high, it forces you to store fat. Your body cannot burn its own fat. You can only store it. So the whole key to weight loss and type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, and everything else is to keep your insulin levels low. And that's the way we used to always do it. Way back from since the beginning of time. I mean, we didn't eat carbohydrates. That wasn't a thing that people did very often at all. And so we were able to keep our insulin levels low. But once processed food came out, that's all people do anymore. And so my big fight is not fight, but what I want to explain to people is it's not, all meat, all vegetables, how much about it just stick with God-made food and away from man-made food. And it makes it so much easier because you get into the woods on some of this stuff. But in fact is some people they handle vegetables with no problem whatsoever. And we're actually that way. But we have been learning a lot more about the oxalates and everything that are in vegetables. And so it's like that's not a battle I'm going to take. If you want to eat vegetables, eat vegetables. If you want to eat fruit, eat fruit. Just don't eat a whole lot of it because of other things, the insulin levels and everything. But and eat meat. Eat lots of meat because most people don't eat meat. And now we're fighting against the food marketers out here who are trying to tell everybody that meat's bad and you got to eat their carbohydrate laden stuff that they sell on these shelves. And people need to realize that is marketing. That the food company is not here to make you healthy. The food company here is here to make money. It's a business. Food company, drug companies, they're here to make money, and they actually make a lot more money when you're sick,
Right.
and when
And
you're
then
hungry.
I think sometimes if you start, and this person you were talking to yesterday may not have been that way, but it's like sometimes, like if you start telling people you can't eat vegetables either, along with everything else, it's so overwhelming. They're like, what, really? I can't even have that? So it's like, no, just try to give up all those processed foods.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's such a
Otherwise,
good
I
point.
mean, people, because that's a progression, like you hear people kind of doing the keto or whatever, and then next thing you know, they're weaning off the vegetables. They find they feel better. And so that's just a process I think people kind of end up doing, or at least in our world,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
keto.
exactly. And I need to remind myself that all the time because I love those complicated discussions. I could sit at Low Carb Denver and
Mhm.
and listen to lectures about subfractions of cholesterol molecules and the latest studies, and I can hang. Like I've done this long enough that I can hang with that kind of thing, and it's not over my head. But that is after 16 years of being a personal trainer and nutrition coach and obsessing about this stuff forever. I need to remind myself to do what you guys do and just keep things a little bit more simple. So I love
Mhm.
that answer. I love the way you guys explain that. Before we talk about what we're going to get into today, can you share your stories of how you kind of ended up dealing with the things that you do now?
Well, with me, like I said, I was a clinical pharmacist for 30 years. I've been a clinical pharmacist for about 32 years now, and worked in the hospital setting for about 29 years. And the first half of that, I was in pediatrics because that's what I did my residency in was pediatrics in Charleston, South Carolina. And then I moved over, and the last half, and I was a supervisor. when I was on peds, we came up with this annual pediatric seminar that we did, where we brought physicians and nurses and respiratory therapists and dietitians and first responders and everything in once a year for a total all-day seminar. And I talked at three or four of those in the first half of my career there or at the hospital. But the last half, since I was the supervisor of the first or second and third shift, I went to the night shift. And so I kind of lost touch with a lot of the pediatrics. But still, about 4 years ago, they contacted me and asked me if I wanted to talk on childhood obesity. And I said, yeah, I would. So I went and I put this talk together about all the same old horrible information, because I didn't know. That's all I knew at the time was that, you need to eat low fat, high carb. You need to, if you want to lose weight, you need to exercise more and decrease your calories, and then talk about the food pyramid and, all the stuff that's wrong. And then I thought I better go back to the literature and see if there's anything else out there. So I did. And I found there was a ton of information out there on nutrition that we just don't know. We weren't taught it in school. Physicians aren't taught it in school. Nobody knows. And then a lot of things that you're taught is things that are funded by the drug companies and the food companies. And so I totally changed my talk, gave the talk. And after the talk, I had several people coming up and to me and saying, this was all brand new information. They loved it. It made perfect sense. They thought I should write a book. So I wrote a book, thanks to my wife, because she took my talk and she just had it put down in through
Fiverr,
Fiverr. And they just went through and they transcribed the whole book for me. And I got it back and I looked at it, I thought, shoot, this is almost a book here. So I just went through and started adding to it. So that's when we got the book, and then got the book out, and then started this podcast. But the main thing is there was so much good information that I think people are so confused by all the different diets that are out there, all the different ways of eating the diets. And I just wanted to say, stop, don't worry about all that stuff, whether you should be all meat or all vegetable or a little bit of both or high fat, low fat. The main thing is just stay away from carbs. I mean, that's really kind of the big thing, keeping your insulin levels low. But once I started doing that and started talking to people, and we actually did a little free little thing in January, and we had several people that just in that first month, they lost on the average around between 20 and 30 pounds. And they felt great doing it. That's the whole thing. Because if you eat clean, that's how you know. If you're eating clean, if you're eating the way you should, and you're drinking water and you're trying to get your sleep, you're going to feel good as the weight comes off. You're just changing from eating carbohydrates for your energy source to letting your body eat your own fat away for its energy source, which is much quicker, cleaner burn. But so that's kind of how I got it. And I mainly got into it because Theresa, she's been into the nutrition and exercise. She's always telling me new stuff that I need to do.
Right. Yeah.
So who do you like?
Well, I think what the big thing with us was, back in 1999, we did, I don't know if you've ever heard of Bill Phillips, the Body for Life program.
Oh yeah. Body for Life was huge. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So we did that and we just had great success. I mean, I think I lost 10 pounds and you lost 25.
Probably.
He did we both did really well because our body, the shapes just changed, especially mine. But that really got some things rolling. So it was kind of always in the back of our mind because Steve ended up going into the night shift, and we thought we'd do something during the day, but that just didn't work out because kids were little and we just focused there. And then once they were gone to college, that was when he was asked to do that talk, and then it just kind of all
and
took
actually
off from there.
Even me switching from being a peds pharmacist into the night shift supervisor or second, third shift supervisor, the reason we did that was for this exact same reason. We wanted to teach people how to get healthy and how to stay out and just prevent getting on medications. And if you're on medications, you can get off them, because most medications, they don't treat anything. All they do is they act like a Band-Aid, and they just kind of mask the symptoms of most stuff. Your blood pressure medicine, cholesterol medicine's crazy, but glucose medicine, I mean, all these medications, they fix one thing and then they mess up a lot more, especially with diabetic medication. Most diabetic medication that you take for type 2 diabetes actually makes type 2 diabetes worse, because most of the medications, it works by increasing your insulin levels because they're trying to get your glucose down, your blood glucose down. That's the worst thing you could be doing, because high insulin levels is what you got there in the first place. That's why you have insulin resistance. That's why you're storing fat. That's why you can't burn your fat. And so the trick is to keep both your glucose levels low and your insulin levels low. And the only way you can we can't do that as pharmacists. If you have high blood glucose, that's all we can do is give you medication to produce more insulin so you can get it down. But for the most part, 95% of the medications that are used are that way. So that's why it's like, we want to get people from being on there in the first place. And once we did that, the Body for Life back in 2000, we realized, oh my gosh, this is really possible. And now that I've started learning all the nutrition information for the last 3-4 years since the talk, it just made me more and more passionate about really trying to get the word out there, because it is crazy how many obese people we have. And being in the hospital with COVID, oh my gosh, it was by far the majority of the patients who died were patients who were obese, especially if they're less than 65. If they were less than 65 or 60 years old, the most common reason is because of obesity. That's why they were dying, because of all the inflammation that fat cells, put into the body is a lot of it. And so now you've got an inflammatory virus with an inflammatory nutrition habit, and your body just can't handle that kind of stuff. So anyway.
I've had multiple people that have been in ICUs during COVID that said they did not see one single patient who didn't have comorbidities, that didn't have obesity or hypertension. One person said they did, but everything was just undiagnosed. They hadn't noticed it yet, but this person clearly had metabolic dysregulation.
Yeah. It's horrible.
Wow.
So, I mean, now that we've found, I really do think this is the cure. This is what will do it. And that's why, like within our podcast and in the book, I try to really try to explain it in as simple terms as I can. But you are talking about nutrition and how the body handles all the different foods and everything. But it just makes so much sense. And when you see all the obesity that's out there and all the medications, it is unbelievable how many medications a lot of people take. I mean, they're coming in, they're getting their medication filled every month for, seriously. I mean, I'm not lying. We've got people who get 15, 20 different medications. I have no idea how they keep it, all clear. Yeah, how to keep track of it. And all the adverse effects. Every single medication fixes one thing and it messes up so many others. So that's why you get another medication to take care of that. And all of this could be totally stopped if you just gave your body the nutrition that it needs.
Wow.
And that's the best way to fight any kind of infection, is give your body the nutrition it needs. Our bodies are magnificent in how they can fight all that stuff. It has for centuries.
Yeah, totally. I don't know if this stat is still true or if it ever was true, but I heard that for every dollar we spend on a primary medication, we spend like $1.83 or something on the medications that deal with the side effects that came from the primary medication.
That's right.
I bet.
That's ridiculous. If that's true, that's ridiculous. That's crazy.
It is. It is very, very ridiculous. And I mean, the system's messed up. I mean, it really seriously is. The whole medical system's messed up. And I think people are more aware of that now since COVID. But it really is. The doctors don't have enough time to spend with patients. I mean, because now you've got corporations who are over you, and it's a business. So they're monitoring, how much time you can spend with each patient and all that. And doctors don't have enough time to sit here and explain all about your nutrition and how here's the way you should be eating, and this will help you stay off this medication. They don't have time for that. So all they do is say, oh, you're having trouble here, then take this medication. Oh, take this medication. And it becomes a monster, and people suffering from it are the ones who are taking the medication. So I want to let them know that it's a choice. You either take medication, you spend all your money on hospitalizations, doctor bills, pharmacists, or you can spend your money on nutritious food. And if you're doing it right with time restricted eating or intermittent fasting, you're not eating that many meals. So you really can do it for a lot cheaper. People think, oh, it's so expensive to eat healthy. It's like, no, it's not. If all you're eating is meat and you only do it twice a day, you're going to stay full. You're going to stay full the entire time, and you're going to keep your insulin levels low, and it's going to be a lot cheaper.
So much cheaper. Yeah, everybody's complaining about egg prices, and it's like, I can eat 20 eggs on a weekend day when I have enough time to scramble them up. And like, that's a few bucks. That's not that expensive. Even if I'm buying local from a farmer, they're a little more expensive. They're not prohibitively expensive. It's not that big of a deal. I love that.